Thanks for joining the third Cybersafety for Parents podcast. I'm joined once again by Brett Hanneth from Intel Security and Alex Merton McCann, Intel Security's cyber mum. In the previous sessions, we have outlined the risks children may face online, as well as examining where they spend most of their time online and how to encourage forming good habits for all of the family. In this session, we'll work on understanding new technology. Brett, how are new technologies impacting the skills of our children?
What was really interesting from the research that we conducted last year and the year before was that children really want to take on new skills about how to defeat cybercrime. So they're very aware of it and they really want to develop their own skills in how to combat it. So that's really, really encouraging. The thing we have to understand though is that there's all sorts of new technologies where cybercrime can actually take effect. And it's a bit daunting for parents as well as children to keep up with these things. They get excited by them, but we need to keep track of how potentially our children can be, adversely affected by these technologies.
What are the laws around social media? Are there age limits?
There definitely are, but I think it's also important just to remind ourselves what is social media. Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Flickr, they're all forms of social media. In other words, ways that people connect. But the thing is, social media has only been around about 10 years and laws take time to catch up with technology.
Sure.
The good thing is that they have caught up. But not all children know or practice law. So we have to be aware that almost 60% of children have used a social media site and they've probably created fake social media profiles like we discussed in the last session between the ages of 7 and 8. So we really have to be aware of not only the variety of platforms that they have, but also we have to educate them on what's appropriate on them and more importantly, what age is the right age to actually be on them. Because they may not grasp the impact or consequences of being on these platforms.
Right. So are there any age limits around the technologies and the new sites?
Yeah, there definitely is. And if we focus on social media, we talked a lot about social media in our last session, but the magic age, I think Alex,
13.
It's 13. So things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, the legal age for those is definitely 13. If you start focusing on other media like YouTube, now YouTube, people see it as a place just to consume videos, but remember YouTube is a social platform. You can post videos. Yeah, and so to join those sort of sites and start interacting in a social form, it's actually 18 years.
Right.
And that's not that surprising considering what you can find on YouTube. But we need to remind ourselves that all you have to do is put in a false birth date and the platform will believe that you're 18 or above. I've even heard some parents actually creating social media accounts because their children is demanding to be on Facebook, to be on Twitter, and they actually lie on their children's behalf. And that's a problem when 59% of children have said that they've used social media platforms even before the age of 10. And there is some content out there we don't want to expose 10-year-olds to.
Absolutely not, absolutely not. So I think as parents, the best thing we can do is actually understand these platforms that our kids are on so we can actually monitor what they're doing on these platforms. So if your kids are on Kik, dare I mention it, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, get on. And not just join up, but actually, follow some people, make some posts, see how it works. It's really, really important.
Alex, what suggestions do you have on how we can make sure that children do understand what the rules are?
It's really hard. I mean, firstly, we need to make sure that they know that it is 13. 13 is the magic age, it appears, with one or two exceptions. So that before the age of 13, they actually cannot join one of these social media platforms. And I often find with my kids, if I'm trying to get them on side or get them to understand my point of view, I often go into the why. And the reason why they can't be on social media until 13 is, it's in legislation, which affects us in Australia, but it's to protect their privacy. So it's because their best interests, are being held here in high esteem. And so if they're 10 and 12 and they're busting to get on, I would recommend trying to redirect them, because there's a couple of really great social media platforms that have been really, really well developed for this tween age. Moshi Monsters is a good one, probably a little bit younger, but there's also Grom Social and Club Penguin's a classic. So there are some social media platforms they can use so they don't feel like they're being left behind.
And sometimes just the jargon scares us
Yep,
off.
totally.
All right, I'm MMing, DMing. I mean,
Yep.
what do these things mean? And so we are sharing with the viewers a couple of the terms to look out for.
Yep.
So just as Alex says, experiment with the platforms, get to know the jargon.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I had trouble with roll
Yeah,
on
that's
floor
a big
laughing.
one.
Yeah, it is a big one.
Yeah, totally.
Right? But there are just so many things out there. So they could be, children can actually hide what they're doing through the language and the acronyms that they're actually using. So be aware of those things. We also can, and maybe parents aren't aware, but we can start to lock these devices down. Right? I remember Alex sharing it with us that we shouldn't be too restrictive, but maybe we shouldn't be allowing them to install any application that they want. And so on Apple iPhones and also Android phones, you can actually stop applications being downloaded and have to enter a passcode.
Okay.
Yeah, so parents can double check, is this application
Absolutely.
okay? And allow the child to download
Right.
and actually install it.
Right. Alex, a large part of making the most of the online world is forming positive and healthy online habits. So how can we ensure that children develop those healthy online habits?
Yeah, look, it's a really, really great question actually, Jo. Something that a lot of families are really starting to implement is the whole concept of a family contract, a family technology plan.
Right.
So, why not call a family meeting? Sit down when everyone's calm, as I said, relaxed and in a really good place, and actually discuss some of the key issues evolving around technology. For example, the amount of time that people should be spending on devices, and include the TV, include everything that has a screen. Don't let that TV sneak in. Talk about the sorts of sites that they should be visiting. Talk about the way they need to interact with others online as well. But you need to be mindful that it's important to have some guidelines and some boundaries, but you don't want to be too restrictive either.
Right.
It's finding that sweet spot because the whole concept of the forbidden fruit, too many restrictions makes things a little bit more attractive.
Right.
So just focus on the main points, I would, in a contract.
So Alex, why are these contracts so important, do you think?
Look, Jo, we're bombarded regularly with studies that show us, some of the negative effects that internet usage can have on our kids. I mean, it can contribute to depression, anxiety, and can actually really muck around with kids' sleep. So having rules in place, whether it's a contract or not, is a great way we can help protect our kids. So some of the rules that I would recommend and use at home with my boys are things like basically no phones during dinner. No phones during dinner is a huge one. It's very rude. I tell them to get on that phone during dinner. It's all about family time. So that's very important. Using strong passwords is really, really important, and changing them regularly. First of the month is always a good time to change them. Not giving out personal information. I mean, we've been over that before, how devastating it can be, when people actually share far too much information. Identities can be stolen. So keeping that nice and tight is really, really important. And only adding people that you have met in real life to your social media platforms is essential. There's too many nasty stories doing the rounds, for people to take those sorts of risks. And, again, talking to an adult if there is an issue, creating that environment where your kids are comfortable to come to you and talk about their online life is really, really important because, as parents, we're problem solvers and they need to feel confident that they can come and we can help them.
If I got a mean message about myself or someone, I would tell someone and I'd delete it and I'd try and block the person who sent it so they couldn't send anything else.
If I got nasty messages, I would delete them and tell an adult that I trust.
I would actually exit the email and tell someone close to me, like my parents or a teacher.
If I saw something bad online, I'd ignore it and tell my parents and tell the person who was getting cyberbullied to tell their parent, or if they couldn't tell their parents, another adult.
If I saw some really nasty behaviour, I would first tell a teacher if it happens at school. But if it's happening at home, I would tell my parents.
If I saw bullying, I would tell Mum and Dad, just because they'd know what to do.
We hope you found these podcasts helpful. Bye for now.